Okay, this is 1.2. We're going to be solving multi-step linear equations. So you should have your 1.2 foldable. If you do not, just take some notes on a piece of paper. Okay, the first flap, if you lift up the foldable, we're going to talk about PEMDAS a little bit. Okay, this is our order of operations when we simplify. Okay, so like if I have something that looks like this, okay, I would use PEMDAS to simplify this. Notice it doesn't equal anything. There's nothing to move to the other side, that kind of thing. So when we are actually solving equations, we are going to use the inverse order. Okay, so we're still using PEMDAS. Whoops, helps if I spell it right. That's a D and an A and an S. Okay, we're still using PEMDAS, but we're going to take PEMDAS and we're going to work this direction instead of parentheses first, okay? Okay, so the first thing that we look at when solving an equation is, do we need to add or subtract to both sides? So addition and subtraction happens first. So and or subtraction. Okay, if there's nothing that needs to be added or subtracted to both sides, or once you do that, you move on to number 2, and that's where you're going to do the multiplication. Can't write, I'm sorry. And or division. Okay, so you always do addition and subtraction first, then multiply or divide. Then you need to take care of those exponents, which, since we're doing linear equations, we won't have exponents, but later on we will. And then 4, so see, that was add, subtract, multiply, divide, exponents, and then we have p. So this is 1, 2, 3, and the p, which is 4, is parentheses. But you can also think of that as grouping symbols. Okay, all right. So let's give a first example. Okay, we want to solve for x in this problem. Okay, we want to get this x by itself. So order of operations, if we have our PEMDAS, I need to add or subtract first. Another way to look at it is if I look at this side with x, what's farthest from x? Well, 2.5 is actually kind of connected to it because it's multiplying. So that minus 13 is what's farthest from it. And that's what you're going to get rid of first, which is that add, subtract. So we're going to add 13 to both sides. Okay, and if you want make sure you have an equal sign, you have to have that plus, 13 on both sides. So now I have 2.5x, because the minus 13 plus 13 cancel, equals 15. Okay, we still want x by itself, so I need to get rid of the 2.5. Here's the multiplication or division. 2.5 is multiplying x, and the inverse operation of that is division. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2.5. That way, a 2.5 in the numerator, 2.5 in the denominator, cancel out to be 1. So I have 1x, which is just x, equals, and then 15 divided by 2.5 is 6. So x equals 6. Okay, let's try the next problem in the examples. This time we're solving this problem. Negative 12 equals 9x minus 6x plus 15. But notice on one side of my equal sign, I have two x's, okay? So I need to combine some like terms here, okay? I have x's and x's. So let's go ahead and just do that math. This is a subtraction symbol, so 9x minus 6x. So on the left side, it's going to stay the same. 9x minus 6x is 3x, and I still have that plus 15 on the end. The only thing I did was combine my like terms. So now I'm to an equation that has one side has an x and a constant, and the other side's a constant. Okay, so now we're going to use that, inverse of PEMDAS. So we need to add or subtract first, which is farthest from x is that plus 15. So I need to subtract 15 to both sides. That's the inverse of adding. Okay, so on the left, I have a negative 27 equals 3x. Positive 15 minus 15 is 0, so that's gone. Well, now I still have x, but I have this 3 multiplying it, okay? So now I'm going to divide by 3. And again, that's our next step. We're either going to multiply or divide if it's needed, okay? On the right side, the 3 over 3 is 1, so I have 1x, which is just x. Negative 27 divided by 3 is a negative 9. Okay, I want you to go to the triad portion, the bottom part of the notes, and complete those 3 problems. So pause the video. Okay, after you finish those triads, go to the next flap, so fold up the next page, and it wants you to solve this equation. Now, this equation has quite a bit going on with it, so we're still going to use PEMDAS. We're just going to start with adding and subtracting, then multiplying, dividing, if there's exponents or if there's parentheses, okay? So working this way. So here's my equal sign here. I got quite a bit going on with this problem here. But the thing farthest from x, if you look here, whoops, did not mean to erase. This is grouped together. So that's really, since those parentheses are saying that 1 minus the x, this is as close to x as you can get. Okay, but then if you work your way farther out of the parentheses, this 2 is multiplying it. So it's the next closest. And the farthest thing from it is that plus 3. That's why we start with add, subtract, okay? So I'm going to, this is plus 3. The inverse of that is minus 3 to both sides. Okay, then my equation ends up being 2, 1 minus x. The 3's add up to 0, now equals negative 11. Okay, well, we did the add, subtract over here. Now I need to do multiply or divide. This 2 is the next farthest away from x, so I now need to divide both sides by 2. And when I do that, the 2 divided by 2 is 1, so it just leaves me with 1 minus x. Now, since there's nothing outside of this parenthesis and there's no exponent, I actually don't need the parentheses anymore. I now just have a 1 minus x, okay? And it equals negative 5.5. All right, well, we did our PEMDAS. Now I have no parentheses, no exponents, but I still have this over here, okay? So what we need to do is start PEMDAS over again, okay? Sometimes that happens, okay? Add or subtract. Well, this is a plus 1 here, so I'm going to subtract 1 to both sides. 1 minus 1 is 0. I'm left with negative x. Sorry, I want to write it in black. Negative x equals negative 6.5. Okay, but I still want x all by itself, so I have to get rid of the negative. Well, remember, when there's no number written in front of x, it's the same thing as saying 1 is there, okay? So I want to get rid of a negative 1 times x. I got to get rid of that negative, so I'm going to divide by negative 1. -1. Okay, -1 divided by -1 is 1, so I'm left with x equals, and -6.5 divided by a -1 is 6.5. Okay, and then there's 4 problems at the bottom that I want you to try. So go do the try it, push pause on the video, and then come back and we'll go over answers. Okay, for your first 3 try-its, your answers should have looked like as follows. For the first problem, -2n plus 3 equals 9. You subtract 3, then divide by -2, and you get n is -3. For the second problem, you need to add the 11 to both sides. Then you divide, since 1/2 is multiplying c, you divide by 1/2. Well, dividing by a fraction is the same thing as saying multiply by its reciprocal. I just flip my fraction and I can multiply it, so it cancels out to 1. And so I'm left with c on the right side, and you should have gotten that equals -20. Now, in the third problem, we had some like terms here. You had to take those like terms. -2x minus 10x is the 12x. And then you solve it like the others. You subtract 12 from both sides. Then you're going to divide -12 to both sides, and you get x is a -1/2. Now, those last 4 try-it problems should look something like this, where the first problem, you subtracted 6 to both sides. Then you divided by 3, and then you had to start PEMDAS over again by subtracting 1 to both sides, and you get x is 0. Now, if you're not sure of your answer, plug it back into the equation, and then see if you get what you want. So in this case, 0 plus 1 is 1. So 3 times 1 is 3, plus the 6 is 9. So 0 did work, okay? So you can check your answer. So on the next problem, I had to get rid of this 5. That's what was adding to the whole right side there. So I had to subtract 5 from both sides. Then I had to divide. I got to get rid of that 4 in front. So I divided by 4. I get 2.5 equals what was in parentheses, 2d minus 3. Now start PEMDAS over again by adding 3 to both sides. And then you need to divide by the 2, and you get d is 2.75. Now the next 2 problems are a little different. There were like terms on the left side here. Okay, I have a 2x and I have a 3x. So I need to simplify that left side before I do anything else. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and do the math here. 5 minus 3, and I got 2. Well, I have 2x times 2 gives me the 4x, and the rest of my equation stayed the same. So it's 4x minus 3x equals 5. Again, here's like terms. 4x minus 3x is 1x, so x equals 5. So I didn't even have to move anything to the other side in that one. It was all just simplification. Okay, so for the last one, we had, both of them had a parentheses with a 3 minus x. So I'm actually going to take that out of both things. I end up with 3 minus x in parentheses, like those said. And then I do this math out front. So 5 plus 2. And that's where I got this 7. And that goes in front of the 3 minus x. So then we use the order of operations. There was no adding or subtracting on the outside here, but there was multiplication. So I had to divide both sides by 7. Then I have what's in parentheses, 3 minus x equals 2. Then I have to subtract 3 to both sides, divide both sides by -1, and your answer becomes x equals 1. All right, so I want you to now go to the practice, and I want you to finish 1.2 in your practice packet, then go to Big Ideas and enter in your answers and check them. And then submit into Big Ideas, take a screenshot of your score, turn your practice packet in, picture of your practice packet for 1.2 and your screenshot into Canvas. And then you need to work on anything else you might be missing, like from 1.1 or the opener.